Welcome, spellcasters, to another episode of whatever this segment turns out to be officially named. We toyed with the idea of spell slots. Someone suggested spell sluts. I've been also thinking about Jorcer's spell book, perhaps. Since I can't afford to have real art made for each of these images, I've been doing a lot of recycled Jorcer the Sorcerer art. With me today is Nick Olivo. Say hi, Nick.
Hi, everyone.
You can introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. What your expertise in the Dungeons and Dragons arts.
Sure. So I am an urban fantasy and a paranormal pulp author. I also run a YouTube channel that shows folks how to get more mileage out of Roll20. And I run a whole bunch of games, both online and at home for D&D 5e. But I've done 3.5, 4e, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Traveler, and a handful of others as well.
All right. Good for you. And the spell you'd like to talk about today is Banishment.
Yes, it's one of my absolute favorite cleric spells that there is.
All right. Well, why? Will you give us some opening thoughts on that?
So I think the thing I really like about Banishment is the control that it gives you on the battlefield. You know, you basically have the ability to just Thanos snap somebody right out of the encounter, and then gives your party a chance to either recuperate if they're in bad shape, or to just really wail on one of the other monsters before this other creature comes back into play. And it can really turn the tide of an encounter if you're able to take something out of commission like that. And it's just it's a very effective way to handle big things. Also, I find that it makes for some interesting RP possibilities because of the material component that the spell requires.
All right, well, don't get too ahead of yourself. I'm going to read the description before we dive any further into it.
All right.
Banishment, a 4th level abjuration spell. Casting time is 1 action with a range of 60 feet. The components are visual, somatic, and material. The one you were just talking about. An item distasteful to the target. That I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. The duration is concentration up to a minute, and the classes the class lists, spell list this spell appears on are the Paladin, Cleric, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. It's a popular one there. All right, the description reads as follows. You attempt to send one creature that you can see within range to another plane of existence. The target must succeed on a charisma saving throw or be banished. If the target is native to the plane of existence you're on, you banish the target to a harmless demi-plane. While there, the target is incapacitated. The target remains there until the spell ends, at which point the target reappears in the space it left, or in the nearest unoccupied space, if that space is occupied. If the target is native to a different plane of existence than the one you're on, the target is banished with a faint popping noise, returning to its home plane. If the spell ends before 1 minute has passed, the target reappears in the space it left, or in the nearest unoccupied space, if that space is occupied. Otherwise, the target doesn't return. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 5th level or higher, you can target 1 additional creature for each slot level above 4th. Okay, fun stuff. Let's go back to what you were saying about that material component.
Sure. So the material component being listed as something that's distasteful to the target, I think that just opens up a whole lot of fun possibilities there, because taste obviously is very subjective. So what is distasteful to a dragon or to a giant or to an earth elemental? You know, it gives you a chance to think in terms of the world and try and figure out what's going to work with those scenarios.
That one little detail, I didn't know what to draw for Banishment when I was doing the cover photo. So I just George was holding a handful of poo.
And that'll do it. I mean, most people would find that distasteful. So that would work. Yeah. And that just, now, if you have a DM who's going to be a real stickler, they may be like, oh, well, you know, that lady who was in the drawing that you did, you know, she's the wife of septic system pumper guy. She is not bothered by
into that.
So yeah, so you know, but for the most part, I think it gives a neat opportunity to do some RP in with the mechanics of the spell.
Sure, and that's free.
Yeah.
None of that. At least 1,000 gold pieces worth now.
Yeah, I hate the spells that have that requirement. I mean, my cleric was broke all the time from diamonds for Revivify, so being able to banish with, like a dragon fang or something like that was way more preferable.
Well, something I've always had trouble wrapping my head around was the planes themselves. Have they been in there since first edition? I recall planar stuff that I always ignored in editions past for as far back as I remember.
They've been around for, I came into D&D in the 3.5 days, and that was an element then too. It was just a matter of, but most of the adventures I did were on the material plane, and every now and then you come across a demon or an elemental or something like that was from beyond, but nobody in the parties I was in back then had access to banishment, which kind of sucked, but I wish we did back then. But they are there today, and like the Descent into Avernus campaign, you go into hell, and that's what you're doing. You're in the lower planes for the whole time, pretty much. And
are there a finite number of planes, or
I mean, there's a bunch of them out there, but I mean, there's Mechanus, which is the plane of order. There's the Abyss. Then within the Abyss, you've got all the hells. There's the upper planes with Elysium. So, I mean, there's a set number that the game world has, but in theory, you could have infinite. Could be like a whole multiverse of them if you wanted. So,
yeah, it's like the only one I'm at all really familiar with is the ethereal plane, because so many spells have you ducking in and out of there, and there's so many creatures, ghosts and whatever native to that plane, and I kind of have my head wrapped around it. It's like kind of it's right here with like parallel to the material plane, but that's not true with hell though. Like the Abyss is like a totally different place.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like a whole nother area that you go into. Same thing with all the elemental planes. So you get the elemental plane of earth or air or fire, which is where all your elementals come from. And so if you're able to cast banishment on one of them, then as long as you hold concentration on the spell for that minute that it mentions, then they're gone. They're not coming back. They're out of it. And sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's when you cast banishment, do you choose what plane you're sending someone to, or?
No, it goes to their home plane if they're from outside. So like an earth elemental would go back to the plane of earth. And then anybody who's not native, like if you were to banish, say, a dwarf, and you're on the material plane, then that dwarf just goes into like this little pocket dimension. And then after the minute passes, they come back. Okay. Whereas if you banish it,
you're not just sending somebody on vacation.
No,
to like some other real plane. Then
no, just this little like in between place.
All right, well, that ruins my business idea.
Well, you can banish yourself in a way. Like if you're talking about in Avernus, you could banish yourself back to the material plane. But the catch there is there's no way to control where on the plane you go back to. So,
well, that's all right. Yeah. I read you were talking about you could be under the ocean or like on the moon or some shit, but that's come on. Then the DM's just being a dick.
Well, it's like when somebody casts wish and they immediately twist the wording so that you wish you were level 20 and they make you great. You're a level 20 car mechanic, or something like that. So it just depends on your
to be that.
Actually, yeah, that would come in handy now that I think about it. But it really depends on, you're right, depends on your DM and how they approach things.
But going back to that business idea I had of mine, you could have a service where you banish like wayward travelers stuck that aren't native to the plane you're on, like, all right, here's a ticket home.
There you go. You totally
some of that sweet diamond dust.
That would have come in handy for your characters in critical failures, right? Sure. I mean, right in the beginning, that would have boom.
So maybe I shouldn't have given that away.
Whoops, sorry. We'll fix that in post. Sorry. Okay.
No, I don't edit these. Man, have we? I don't know. What else, is there anything else to say about banishment? I think we.
I mean, the only thing to keep in mind is when you do cast it, you have to hold concentration.
Oh,
And
good one.
otherwise, if you lose concentration, then whatever you banished is going to come right back. And that can make for some interesting and challenging moments on the
Well, I mean,
battlefield.
for your primary use, or the first one you talked about was, just getting somebody off the battlefield for a couple of turns, and that still works. I mean, it's even if somebody clobbers you over the head and you break your concentration and they come back, well, I mean, at least they're still out for a couple of rounds. Hopefully you
Yeah.
did some damage between then.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully you did. That's the one catch, But personally, I'd love to be able to hold it the whole time and then keep whatever it is off, forever. Send that elemental back and leave it there. But if you can't, something's better than nothing, like you said.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Do you want to plug whatever you do? You said you have books. I know you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you head out to nickolivo.net, you can see the urban fantasy books that I have, the paranormal pulp stories, links to my YouTube channel, some of the Cthulhu scenarios that I wrote. So all stuff is available out there on my site.
I'll put links in the description here too.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on.
It was my pleasure.
All right. Yep. Yeah, I don't know how to end these. Bye.